What's up, YouTube? This is your friend, the neighborhood movie nerd, back to give you guys everything that is going on in the world of movies and TV. And unfortunately, I still don't have a camera. But guess what? Once again, that's not going to stop me from getting you guys quality content. But unfortunately, since Star Wars month is over, I decided to keep it within the realm of TV. And this time, just to torture some fellow YouTubers that we've been collaborating with here on the Talkin TV channel, I finally decided to take a look back on easily my favorite television sitcom ever made, live action, I'd like to specify. Right, people, I'm finally taking a look at a show that I hadn't gotten to watch since high school. These are my top 10 favorite episodes of Community.
It's gonna last 3 weeks! 6 seasons and a movie!
Community has a special place in my heart because it's a show that helped to define my personal sense of humor as well as the sense of humor of a lot of other people. But more than that, the show seemed determined to not just rely on the same old sitcom tropes after sitcom tropes. Rather, it uses expansive cast of characters, ingenious writing, limited resources, and insane direction to tell a series of unique stories that one week after the other constantly seemed to up the ante. Despite becoming seemingly lackluster in its later seasons, it was still always known as the show that was constantly pushing the envelope when it came to serial sitcom storytelling. So without further ado, let's rejoin the infamous study group, Jeff, Britta, Abed, Annie, Troy, Shirley, and Piers, as we examine Dan Harmon's infamous, groundbreaking meta sitcom. Here are my top 10 favorite episodes of Community. But first, some honorable mentions.
Mafia movie. As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be in a mafia movie.
Don't die.
Good pep talk, Jeff.
Yeah, I used to love dying, but that speech really turned me around.
We soon forgot.
I would say you're quite correct, Mr. Winger.
Who the hell are you?
My name is Mr. Stone.
That's easy for you to say.
Ready to step this mother up a notch. This commercial is gonna push every button, starting with the one that is so hot, it will sizzle your finger. Race.
Fifth grade is really hard for everyone. Mom, how many lies have I been living?
Troy.
Number 10, Cooperative Calligraphy, Season 2, Episode 8. The infamous bottle episode, as Abed put it.
For that, I hate bottle episodes.
What starts out as a quest to find Annie's missing pen turns into yet another episode in which the study group finds themselves isolated in one location and admitting all their messy feelings to each other. Due to its frequent low budget, Community constantly found new and interesting ways to tell insane stories about these characters with fewer and fewer locations, and this is one of the show's brightest and funniest spots. Abed reveals he's tracking the girl's menstrual cycles. The gang discovers Shirley's pregnancy, which based on when she was ovulating allows Troy to figure out that the father might not be who Shirley thinks based on a very incriminating voice message. And the end gag of the true perpetrator being Troy's missing monkey, Annie's boobs, all help to make this one of the most memorable and funny episodes of this meta show. But it would not be the last, rather the first of many hilarious episodes to take place entirely in one setting. Number 9, Conspiracy Theories and Interior Design, Season 2, Episode 9. This episode has one of my favorite endings in any episode of television. The majority of the episode follows Jeff and Annie as they investigate Greendale's elusive night school after a professor that Jeff made up for an independent study credit turns out of nowhere. This results in a series of escalating circumstances as Jeff, Annie, and the dean all end up pulling guns and backstabbing one after another in the final showdown, to the point where it becomes literally hard to follow as to what the conspiracy actually is and who is behind it. This episode pulls all the best beats from mystery murder comedy such as Clue, and even goes a step further by utilizing a modern-day twist. In addition, this is also the episode that introduced audiences to Troy and Abed's infamous blanket and pillow fort. Number 8, Virtual Systems Analysis, Season 3, Episode 16. This episode makes this list for finally tapping into something that had long been an underlying theme since the show's inception. Abed's growing concern that his friends will reject him. Annie sets Troy and Britta up on a date and volunteers to replace Troy in Abed's latest Dreamatorium excursion. But when she doesn't live up to Abed's ridiculously high standards and ends up calling him selfish as a result, she messes with Abed's Dreamatorium energy source and causes him to have a mental breakdown, resulting in a series of hallucinations and role-playing. The great thing about this episode is that, similar to Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, it uses an outlandish setup to take a surprisingly deep and mature look into mental health and autistic disorders and what makes them tick. The thing that always set Abed apart from other meta TV sidekicks is that the writers always use his meta nature as a facade to shield his deeper insecurities, and this episode was probably the best when it came to displaying them. Number 7, Intermediate Documentary Studies, Season 2, Episode 16. For the majority of its run, Community had to compete against 3 other tremendous hits from NBC's Thursday night comedy lineup: 30 Rock, The Office, and Parks and Recreation. So in Season 2, considered by many to be the show's high point, Dan Harmon decided to take a direct dig in Michael Schur and Greg Daniels' signature style that helped change comedic TV by introducing that style into the structure of an episode. With Pierce in the hospital and supposedly dying from a pill overdose, he invites the study group in order to bequeath to them some parting gifts, which results in a series of escalating mind games as part of an underlying arc that season of Pierce's feelings of alienation from the study group. These include telling Jeff that he's found his long-lost father, giving Shirley a disc with audio of the group supposedly making fun of her, a $10,000 check for Britta with nothing written in the name line to give to the charity of her choice, a tiara for Annie, and without a doubt one of the funniest gags in Community history, summoning Star Trek The Next Generation actor LeVar Burton for Troy to meet in person, which results in probably one of the funniest that Donald Glover has ever been on the show.
I told Pierce 1,000 times I never wanted to meet LeVar in person. I just wanted a picture. You can't disappoint a picture.
That alone should have gotten him the Emmy. It was a great episode that took a dig at Community's competition and had some amazing laughs along the way. Number 6, Epidemiology, Season 2, Episode 6. Sitcoms and, well, TV shows in general are known for their Christmas and Halloween specials, but Community took them up another notch. In the show's third major movie homage, the study group discovers during their annual Halloween party that rancid taco meat the Dean got from the army is actually turning all the Greendale residents into zombies, resulting in a zombie bottle episode that makes The Walking Dead looks like the Scouts' Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. The writers take this opportunity to explore and riff on every horror trope in the book, with direct references to zombie classics like Night of the Living Dead and Shaun of the Dead, as well as many other hilarious horror tropes. In the end, it's up to Troy to save the day, which results in yet another misplaced and frankly untrue trope that I'm still confused is a thing.
Make me proud. Be the first black man to make it to the end.
Number 5, Horror Fiction in 7 Spooky Steps, Season 3, Episode 5. Okay, I really have a thing for these goddamn Halloween episodes. A lot of people probably thought this may have been a cop-out at the time, considering this was the episode that had to follow up Remedial Chaos Theory. But the thing I love about this episode is rather than riff on one specific sect of horror, it instead takes the opportunity to incorporate almost every single other type of horror storytelling and genres there are. Basic slashers, religious parables, body horror, and YA creature features to say the least. After discovering through her secret psych evaluations that one member of the study group might have psychopathic tendencies, Britta sits them down and has them each tell scary stories in a feeble attempt to get the culprit to cop. What results is, like so many other fantastic episodes, a series of stories that somehow manage to incorporate the group's residual characteristics and insane personalities into wildly specific and subsequently more ridiculous spooky stories, all while using the same set. It's definitely more of a fun episode, but it doesn't make it any less unique or hilarious. Number 4, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, Season 2, Episode 14. Another quintessential piece of viewing that helped to define the show's identity in the second season, as well as introducing the world to Dan Harmon's love of the role-playing game. In an attempt to stop fellow student Fat Neil from potentially killing himself, the study group invites him to play a game of Dungeons & Dragons, and what results is yet another dip into genre storytelling that somehow never leaves one location. It never ceases to amaze me how the Russo brothers' direction in the show could make the exact same locations look cinematic and transportative. Because even though I know I'm watching the study group sitting around the table talking, the episode still feels like an epic fantasy, complete with voiceover and epic music. On top of that, it was the show's continued boldness into using pop culture storytelling devices to take a serious look at mental illness that continued to prove that the show was more than capable of surpassing its safe sitcom roots. Oh, and of course, Chang's unintentional blackface. Come on. Number 3, Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas, Season 2, Episode 11. This Christmas special became another quintessential part of Community's reputation, namely because it introduced the world to Dan Harmon's sensibilities with animation, a feat he would dive more into on his follow-up show, Rick and Morty. Abed has a mental breakdown close to Christmas and begins seeing everything in stop motion. So in an attempt to help their friend, the study group, along with Professor Ian Duncan, pretend to go along with Abed on his journey throughout a magical Christmas landscape to find the meaning of Christmas. With odes to many a Christmas special, specifically those of the Rankin and Bass Animation Company, the study group assumed the form of various Christmas-related paraphernalia and accompany Abed on a journey throughout his own mind, the result of which is revealed to be that Abed won't get to celebrate Christmas with his mom for the first time in years. I'm noticing a growing pattern with how the episodes that focus on Abed's mental state tend to be some of the best ones, and this episode was no exception. Besides the impeccable stop-motion animation being yet another ingenious way to save money, as well as the end gag being the first season of Lost, representing a lack of payoff, this episode was so satisfying because the idea of constructing a make-believe fantasy as a means of coping with tragedy of some kind is an idea that modern science is often cited as being unhealthy, but this show proved that not only could it be the opposite, but sometimes even necessary. Number 2, A Fistful of Paintballs and For a Few Paintballs More, Season 2, Episodes 23 and 24. Between these two episodes and my number 1 entry, Community's identity was officially born. After being tasked to add 3 extra episodes to the original 22-episode count of the first season, Dan Harmon crafted 3 infamous episodes, one of them being Contemporary American Poultry, the infamous Chicken Fingers Mafia-themed episode. But the big one was Modern Warfare, in which a friendly paintball game for the prize of priority registration turns into an all-out war filled to the brim with action cliches and one-liners that fills the campus with pain. This two-part season 2 finale took it up a notch, as Anthony and Joe Russo were finally able to put their action filmmaking skills to the test here, as this time, the Greendale students are competing for a straight cash prize of $100,000. The catch, however, is that Greendale rival City College has actually posed as the ice cream company offering the prize money, and has even enrolled several of their own students in an attempt to have the Greendale students wreck their own school and then use the prize money to buy them out. It turns from a winner-take-all mentality to an underdogs versus the elite conflict, something the community made its mantra both on the show and in real life, constantly having to compete against bigger dogs for the screen time they so deserve, with part 1 of this 2-part finale taking on the form of a Wild West setting, and part 2 transitioning into a Star Wars mantra to mirror these themes. It's safe to say that between the insane action, even more insane stakes, and intense commitment from the entire cast that brings all the conflicts and hurt feelings of the past season to the surface, that these are some of the best episodes that the show has to offer. And as if that wasn't enough, these episodes were so awesome that 2 years later, the Russos got a call from one Kevin Feige to direct the next Captain America movie. That's right, these 2 episodes paved the way for the Russo brothers to go on to direct the highest grossing movie in the world. Talking about working your way up. Number 1. Remedial Chaos Theory, Season 3, Episode 4. The 3 paintball episodes may have finally been the thing to get this show noticed, but if we're talking series high points, then look no further than the 4th episode of the show's 3rd season. Troy and Abed are throwing a housewarming party at their apartment, but when it comes time for someone to go down to get the pizza, a simple dice throw to determine who goes ends up spawning 6 parallel timelines, each more crazy than the next. I remember watching this show for the first time in high school and forming a particularly strong attachment to it because I finally seemed to have found a show that played to my sensibilities directly. But this was the episode that finally informed me that, okay, sitcoms can be more than the same tropes you see over and over again. Of all the groundbreaking episodes of Community, this was the one that really took a deep look into what writing for network television could actually accomplish. And that's not even including the insane storytelling mechanisms involved here. Multiple universes/timelines is a storytelling technique usually reserved for comic books, so seeing it applied to a network comedy was insane. But even if you take that aspect out of it, this is once again playing to what Community did best, which is examining the dynamics of the group by comparing their vastly different personalities and flaws and playing them off one another. Only this time in the sense of how the group would function if one of their essential players was missing. It does this by linking one object to each member of the group and uses the Pavlov's gun storytelling technique in a way that, even through all the constant timeline hopping, makes a clear and concise story that one can still follow, and it just gets more and more ridiculous with each subsequent timeline. It's an ingenious episode of the show, and without a doubt its high point. It pushed the boundaries of what kinds of stories you could tell in a sitcom, and even more than that, it pushed the types of stories that TV was even capable of telling. All that in a cap-off song that Britta had been trying to sing all episode makes this easily the best episode of Community. So that's it. Those were my top 10 absolute favorite episodes of Community. Once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in to yet another infamous top 10 list. And let me know in the comments section what your guys' favorite episodes of Community were. Guess what? It's on Netflix now, so you guys have no excuse to have not watched it. It's the best sitcom ever, in my opinion. So please go watch it if you haven't already. If you like The Office and Parks and Rec, you're absolutely going to love this show. And yeah, guess what? We're on the Talkin TV YouTube channel. We have a podcast in addition to this page. It's on our Anchor page. You can find that in the links below. But also, please be sure to leave a like and a subscribe. You can click the subscribe button that flashed multiple times during this video, or you can also just click that little subscribe button that's right there on the bottom of the page that you're watching this video at. Also, be sure to follow all of our social media at Talkin TV Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, as well as my own personals at Movie Nerd Reviews across all social media platforms. Thank you guys so much, and of course, as always, be cool and watch more fucking movies.